Hi everybody, my name is Kirstin and I'm a librarian at San Leandro Public Library. Today I'm going to talk to you about my favorite author, Fredrik Backman. Now you may have heard of his smash hit book, A Man Called Ove. This is about an old curmudgeon who is grumpy, and it's a very funny book. You get to see this old man throw rants about everything that irritates him. And I think we've all had those moments when we are self-righteously angry about how somebody performs or what they do, and that irritates us, whether it's a neighbor or some tech guy at the Apple store. So there's something really cathartic about reading Uva going through a rant about something. And this book is full of humor, and it's also full of compassion. You learn more about Uva and what makes him and what brought him to this point in his life. So the next book by Fredrik Backman is My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry. And this is a different book because it focuses on a 7-year-old girl named Elsa and her grandmother, who is her one champion in her life, the person who really knows what's going on in her life and that she can be honest with. Her grandmother creates this magical world to help Elsa kind of navigate real life. And they have this great relationship, but sadly, the grandmother passes away. And when she passes away, she leaves Elsa with a quest to deliver letters of apology to people all across the town. This 7-year-old girl navigates challenges and adventures to deliver these letters. And I think that this story really resonates because we all may have some regrets. We may have realized that we could have handled things better, or we want to apologize. And here's this catharsis of making things right. And meanwhile, it's all helping Elsa to develop the courage to handle the big challenges in her life. And I think that this book has one of the most eloquent comments on school-age bullying that I've ever read. And it's thoughtful, it's compassionate, and there's still humor and a lot of intrigue and adventure in this story. Fantastic book. So there's a character in that book named Britt Marie, and Fredrik Backman wrote a book called Britt Marie Was Here. And this is kind of sort of a sequel in that a character from one book leaves that town and goes to a small town. Now, when I saw Fredrik Backman talk in Santa Rosa a couple of years ago, he said that what he wanted to do with this book was to write a coming-of-age book for a middle-aged woman. I loved that idea. Who writes a coming-of-age book about a middle-aged woman? Fredrik Backman. He realized that this character had never really lived her life and never really discovered who she was. And so this story was that opportunity to tell her story about discovering herself. So she moves to a small town because there's a job listing. And once she gets to the town, she discovers that the job of running the recreation center for the town is actually only going to be a short-term job because the recreation center is going to be demolished. And while she's there, because I guess you work a job if you've got a job, while she's there, she discovers that some kids really need somebody to direct them. And the kids talk her into becoming their soccer coach. And she knows nothing about coaching, she knows nothing about soccer, but she knows that they need somebody to be their leader, and she becomes that. And it's a really great book, full of compassion and humor and sports. And I just loved it. I learned a lot about sports that I hadn't realized, about what we learn as a team and what kind of life lessons we learn from sports. And then, going on with sports is Beartown. And this is also on our Libby app. All of these books are on our Libby app and available right now. So I have a print copy of Beartown, but it's also available online as an ebook or an e-audiobook. And this book is about a small town whose one claim to fame and identity entirely centers on the high school ice hockey team. The commerce is all centered on it. Everybody goes to the games. It's like their religion. And a terrible crime happens. And the town has to decide how to respond to that crime at the risk of losing their ice hockey team goals. And this is an underdog town whose one claim to identity is someday they will beat the neighboring town's ice hockey team. And really a fantastic book. I was intrigued the moment I started reading it because chapter 1 is very short, and this is what it says. Late one evening, toward the end of March, a teenager picked up a double-barreled shotgun, walked into the forest, put the gun to someone else's forehead, and pulled the trigger. This is the story of how we got there. When I read that, I had to stop because that last line, it doesn't say this is the story of how the shooter got there. It doesn't say this is how the victim got there. It says this is how we got there. And I was fascinated and intrigued. A really compelling story, thoughtfully written. Fredrik Backman has a new book coming out. It will be released in September called Anxious People, and I'm very much looking forward to that. He can deal with really difficult, heavy topics, as well as humor and thoughtfulness, and overall, I find his books full of compassion and understanding for a wide array of people. So I hope you enjoyed this book talk, and I hope it gets you inspired to read and enjoy more books and discover Fredrik Backman. Thank you so much. Bye.